Okay, so the first thing you have to do is to turn on the electricity. So to turn on the electricity, we have to plug in these two things. One says range and one says main. And it's marked here. M is for main on the above, so we put the main one in there, and that'll give us the power to the house. You just line it up so that these blades go in there and push it in. So that's the mains, and then this one is for the stove, and it says range, and there's an R up on the breaker box, so you plug that one in, you just push it in. Now we have power. This is the power for the hot water heater, but you have to leave it down, off, until we get water in the hot water heater, otherwise it'll burn up the hot water heater. So that stays off. Now we should have power, hopefully. Let's see what happens. Yay! On, off. That's it. Okay, so next we're going to power the refrigerator, and you see this is how we leave it at the end of the summer so that it doesn't get all mildew and nasty. So you have to take out all the water, and then we put this clip here so that there'll be air going in. We do it down here too so that there's air and the fridge stays nice and like that. So we'll go ahead and close the door.
Hey, what you doing?
And then we plug in the refrigerator. Maybe I'll just move this. And we'll plug it in here. And I hear it going. So that's a really good sign. So here's the key for the garage. And we'll just unlock the garage because that's where the water. Here is the water pump. So we're going to have to take this out and put it in that little white house over there. Okay, so this is the bathroom, and this is how we leave it at the end of the year. So you have to make sure and take all the water out because it'll freeze and everything will break. So you got to drain all the water, you got to mop out all the water by hand so there's nothing in there. And likewise with all the pipes and stuff, that's afterwards. So now we'll do the reverse in a few minutes. Here's the hot water heater, and this is so we won't turn that on until it's filled with water. So here's the pump out of the garage into the pump house, and we've got to make a few connections. So we're going to hook this hose up here, and then we have to take this big hose on the ground and hook it up here. And then finally, this is the electric power, and we're going to plug the power in underneath the house. There's an outlet box on the rafter that you can see. You have to kind of scoot under there. We'll do that last. We'll power it last. I gotta go get that hose. Okay. So here's our hose that's going to go in the lake, and we have a weight so that it'll stay on the bottom. And we put some screens also to help protect it. So in a few minutes I'm going to throw this out in the lake. But for the moment I'm going to wait because we have to fill this up with water. So we have our tools here in the kitchen next to the fireplace. And these are the ones that we use for tightening up the hoses and stuff like that. And I think everything we need is in this bag, so we'll give that a try. So now this is the other end of the hose that goes to the lake that we just looked at with the cinder block. So we're going to hook that up to the pump, and this is the intake to the pump. So we have to wiggle it on here and then tighten it with these clamps. So we use a 5/16 wrench, and that's what you use to loosen up these seat clamps. We got two of them here, so you can loosen them up and get them into place. So they have to go over top of where that gray tube was, like that. and like this so that we can tighten up the hose around that gray pipe. So I'll go ahead and do that. Always been crimped, and I think that's not a big deal. Still works. So yes, get this on here again too. I think that's just fine the way it is. So you scooch this up right near the edge here so it'll tighten onto the white. The black hose will tighten onto the white hose. So now the secret is that you have to get all the air out of all the hoses, and there has to be only water in there. So we're lucky our neighbor has a well, otherwise we'd have to go in the lake and get buckets to fill it up. But you just turn this red handle so that it's open, not closed. You can see it easily. So we open it, and then I'm going to put this hose in here and let water start filling in. There's air in the tube and the ends are closed, so you can't put much water in there. So what we're going to have to do is let the air out of both ends, and then we can fill it up more. So this valve here, this red one, is to shut off the flow from the pump into the house. So I have that turned off because when you first start the pump you want this to be closed so it can charge up. But for now I'll turn it counterclockwise and see if water comes out. We should have water coming out of there. So that's good. We know the blue tank is filled up and it's starting to come out. That's the side that'll go into the house. So now all the water will stay in the blue tank. Turn it clockwise until it's shut. So that way we'll make sure that all this fills up and pressures up before we start letting it into the house. We're going to hook up power to the pump so that it'll be able to pump the water from the lake into the house. And this is the ground wire. So I'm going to hook this ground wire in here so that the pump is grounded for safety. And then you tighten up this screw to hold the ground. I'm going to have to go under the house to plug this in. Okay. So here's the plug. So this house is old and it has only 2-prong plugs. So I have to put this adapter from 3 prongs to 2 prongs. And then I can plug it in up here. This goes to a switch in the house which should be off. And we have a switch also. Now here's the pipes here. I started using a PEX, they call it PEX pipe. It's all plastic and it's easy to work with if you need to do repairs, but you're supposed to have it sloped down so that when you close the camp all the water drains out, because you don't want any water to be in these pipes or it'll freeze and crack. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we put on screens and filters to take the dirt from the lake so it won't get into the hose. So I'm taking off the old stuff from last year. We have this outer screen, and then we have this nylon stocking, and this is the actual cover that came with it. So I'm just going to take these off for now, and then I'll put in some new pieces. That's good. It is, you can't get the air out of here unless you put this valve in so that the water can flow through and push out the air. So I took off the screen and the stockings so that I can get to the valve, and then I'll push this valve and it'll let water out like that, and that's letting the air out. Okay, you put in water in, so we're putting in water into the other side.
Okay.
good?
Yeah.
Okay, so I put it under water and let the last bubbles come out. And now I'm going to go ahead and put on the cover and a fresh stocking on it. So we put the inlet into the lake and weighed it down with some rocks, and Shannon professionally filled this up so that it's all full with water and there's no air. And then we turn this so that it's closed. You can see it close in there. And now we're going to try to start the pump, and hopefully it'll work first time. Okay, so there's a switch inside the house that you have to turn on the side of the wall first, and then there's a switch outside that also controls it. So I'll turn it on. So I have the water turned off here, all filled up with water all the way down to the lake, no air hopefully, and I'll turn it on. So it should come on and then turn off automatically after 15 seconds. Yeah, so that's a good sign. That means that it's built up the pressure in the tank and everything seems to be sealed and it's not leaking. Now if it didn't stop after a minute or so, you'd have to turn it off and try to fill up the lines again, because this has to have water flowing through it or overheat and burn up. You have to open this up. This will let the water out of the pump to the house, and then we'll hear the pump come back on. Okay, so we got water coming out. That's good. That'll help clean out some of the stuff from the pump, and then the pump should come back on again. Now, we close this one. This is just for garden hoses and stuff like that. Now if you come over to this side, this is how we drain. So you can see these things are all covered with crud. This is how you drain the system when you leave. This will let all the water out so that it won't freeze up over the winter time. So now we know the water's flowing. I believe the blue is the cold water, so I'll turn this off. This one's the hot water, so it hasn't filled up the hot water tank completely yet, so this one's flowing, so I'll turn this off. Now have to make sure that these handles are off, because you have to close up this drain. Okay, this should also be closed off too. Normally you should turn off this stuff before you turn on the water. Okay, now I have to put a cap on here, which happens to be in the sink. So this is not the best example of how to do it, but basically the sink drains through the trap to the outlet, so I got to put this and screw it on the bottom here, and then the sink will drain into the septic field. Okay, so that's good. There's water coming out of the shower too, so that's good. So I'll turn these off. They're marked. So you turn that off, turn that off, and then you have to hook this up to the shower head so you can take your shower. You can hear the toilet filling up. See it coming out down there? And you can see the water going here. Now, gotta make sure this closes. So now it should start filling up. So we have to fill this tank all the way up before we throw the electricity on to start hot water. So we've got this closed now. That's to drain the tank. So when you finish at the end of the year, you put a hose on here, run it out the side door, open this up, and the tank drains outside. You have to tilt the tank too to make sure that every bit of water gets out from inside. And then you can open this valve to see, to let the air out of the tank. You can hear the air coming out. And then as it fills up, water will come out of here in a little bit. So we'll wait until the tank's all filled up. The valve to turn on the toilet is that one down there. Okay, so we let all the air come out of the faucet for hot water, so now it's going good. And I also checked to make sure there's no more air coming out of this. It's just water. So we know that this tank is full, so now we can turn on the power to make hot water. So all we have to do is this here, it gives you instructions, and it's basically off, and now we'll turn it up. It's a little throw switch up, and now there's electricity to the hot water heater, but it takes a hot water heater about 5 hours to really get hot.
Oh boy.
And that's it. Okay, so we used to have copper plumbing, and you have to solder on the fittings and stuff under the camp, which is a pain in the ass. So we replaced it all with this plastic PEX, and this is much better. It's easier to work with, and it'll expand and contract if you get ice in there or something, and it's easy to work on too. Modern plumbing, you can get all these things at Home Depot that you just, like, instead of having to solder or anything, you just slip this thing in, you put this ring on, and then you crimp it with this tool. So you just put it in there, something like that, yeah. So just like that, and you stick this here, and you crimp this, and it'll tighten up like that around the hose. So then you'll have yourself a nice connection. So if you have any leaks underneath the camp, we've got hose, this PEX hose, we have tools, connectors, so you can do your own repair work without calling a plumber.